for the day, Roselyne Wanjiru.
Thank you.
Very impressive that she's this young and knows so much. There is something about the Kenyan system vis-a-vis the American system or the developed world system. They say the reason why in the developed world people are experts or specialists is because they learn so much or so little. And here we learn so little of so much. But Roselyne has been one to back that trend. Despite her young age, she has become an established authority in this field of blockchain. And we're going to listen to her. And it's my honor to host her today. I remember when I spread the post, I was spreading the posts around. One of my friends who was also a big person himself told me that Roselyne, is one of his smartest friends, and I was wondering. I thought that was me, but it is Roselyne apparently. So it's an honor to host you. So Roselyne, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. My name is Roselyne, and just let me begin with saying that I am glad and honored to be here, part of the Legibra family. I was introduced through Mercy Rope. I'm not sure if she's here today, but she's the one that really got me here, and I'm pleased to meet each and every one of you. So my name is Roselyne Wanjiru. I'm an economist. I clearly reside in Kenya, and I'm really passionate about the blockchain space. You can engage with me a little bit more on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to find out more. So we'll keep talking as the interview goes on.
Well, how impressive. I know some of you are tempted to know how old she is, but that is between me and her. Yeah, just know that she's old enough. Now, Roselyne, I'm having a problem with blockchain.
Yes.
When blockchain came up, we heard about bitcoins,
Yes.
in the movies and everything, and we thought blockchain is here to fuel terrorism, is here to fuel money laundering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So people are very reluctant. They thought that it's a scam or something like that. So what is blockchain, and why does someone as innocent as you invest so much research into this?
All right. Now, let's begin with the fact that blockchain is a technology, right? We can agree on that. It's a distributed ledger, and it has three properties. The first is that it's append only, meaning that you can only add to the set of information that's there. And the set of information is what is referred to as the blocks. So when you have the series of the blocks of information, that's what you have as the blockchain. The second thing about it is that it's readable. It's something that you can access through certain platforms, and you don't have to be the administrator in this case to find out what information is there. And the third thing is that this set of information, it's distributed, it's shared. There's no singular owner of this information, which is why people say it's decentralized. So if I may just put that in 3 words, it's immutable, it's readable, and it's decentralized. That's why it's just tech that's got people talking. But then now when it comes to the applications, that's where we have the issues coming up. If you are a good person and you're looking to develop this tech for good uses, you will find advantages, you will find a way to use it. But if you're also a terrible actor in the space, yes, you will find a way to use it. And that's why we've had issues of terrorists using this tech to fuel their activities. The problem is not the tech, it's that they found an avenue through it. They were using cash before, they were using the other avenues before. It's just that now they found a way through this, but it doesn't mean that we can't act smarter to stop them in their tracks.
Well, okay. So we know there are many uses of blockchain.
Yes.
As you'll explain later.
Yeah.
But let's just delve into finance more. The whole process of buying and selling. We have seen National Oil, for example.
Yeah.
They set up the first gas station that accepts Bitcoin, and all of a sudden people started taking note. Yeah. You've seen the government set up a task force for blockchain and what have you. So how massive is this in Kenya right now? Are we talking about something that is only in the US, Europe, or is this something that we should prepare for?
As Kenyans, we definitely need to prepare for it. Case in point, Betty's restaurant in Nyeri, she took an initiative in terms of teaching people how to accept Bitcoin and how to use Bitcoin. Because one thing, for example, for the Kenyan market, there are many people who have delved into the space in terms of buying Bitcoins personally, sending them to their friends. There are those ones who've been scammed, and unfortunately, there are many people who don't want to hear anything about Bitcoin and blockchain because of the money that they've lost. But I would say that there's an increasing number of people in Kenya who are just either learning, taking it up, buying Bitcoins and getting into trading, because there are different avenues to profit from the whole ecosystem. So aside from Kenya, there are many countries that are really taking it up. So one of the things that we will also look at later is the level of government regulation. If the government is either open or supportive of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, you'll find that more people are active, or more people are trying to get aware. And if the government is restrictive, of course, people will not really want to be in that side.
So let's say, yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
There's this restaurant in Nyeri, there's this gas station,
Yeah.
and I want to have Bitcoin.
Yes.
Where do I go?
Now, for instance, we have different exchanges. There's Bitfinex, there's Belfrix. You can also buy from one of your friends, but just make sure that someone who's trusted, so that it's, you're not really landing into a scammer's hands.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do you buy it? Is it a swap Bitcoin and cash?
There's Bitcoin now for the exchanges, whereby it's cash, but there's also the ATM at Westlands that was recently installed.
Really?
Yes.
Well, how much cash are we talking about? Is there a stable exchange rate, like the way we know how the shilling relates to the dollar?
No, I wouldn't say there's a stable exchange rate, because the price of Bitcoin again depends on different factors. For trading, it's what's the current demand of Bitcoin. Let's say, and by demand I mean, if I have a Bitcoin, how much are you willing to pay for me to get you that Bitcoin? So that's one of the things that really determines the price. So right now it's from like December, we saw the price rising up from 1,000, 2,000, got to over $20,000, then it slapped down $5,000. Right now it's about 8,000. So you see, all those there are so many factors that drive the price, but you just need to be aware, why are you using it in the first place?
$8,000 for one Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Why?
And the reason for that, if I may break it down as simply as possible, it's the way that people have invested in the infrastructure around Bitcoin, in the ecosystem around Bitcoin. I believe that if people never adopted Bitcoin in the first place, we would never have seen its value rise to what it is today. Because if it's useless to you, then there's no point of investing in infrastructure to mine it, or getting companies to accept it, or getting businesses to adopt it.
You've talked about mining.
Yeah.
What is Bitcoin mining?
Bitcoin mining is the process by which initially, as a computer software developer, engineer, or even as a gamer, you could use your computer to solve a specific problem, and by solving that problem using cryptography, you could generate Bitcoins, because then Bitcoin would come as a token or as an award or a reward for the work that you've done. And that work that you've done is what you call the concept of proof of work. So it means that you've worked to solve that problem and you get the Bitcoins in return. But then now that has shifted to whereby people will use specific machines to mine or generate the Bitcoins.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you talk about machines to mine or generate, are we talking about a physical coin?
Yes, not a physical coin, but a digital token. It's the machines that are physical.
The machines are physical,
Yes.
but they mine or generate something digital.
Yes, that's accepted digitally.
Have you mined Bitcoins before?
Not personally.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, interesting. Now, still on the valuation.
That's all right.
Because it's crazy, really.
Yeah, it's interesting.
$8K is not a walk in the park.
Yeah.
How much do you think? I mean, in your estimations, how much do you think is the value of Bitcoin right now in the country?
Now, in the country, it still will be within that $8,000 range.
No, I mean like the whole operation. Like, is it $1 million industry? Is it because I'm looking at maybe someone who's going to watch this realizing the value of it and decided to invest. Like Legibra here, the reason why we offer domain and hosting and websites is because we know the value. We know that websites are actually $1 billion industry in Africa.
Yes, it is.
So what is the current value of Bitcoins in Kenya?
I wouldn't particularly say that I have the statistics for Kenya in terms of what people have invested, but globally we're looking at a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Now, maybe now coming deeper, you've talked about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So is there anything else we need to be in the lookout for? Because we know in currency we have notes, we have coins, we have 50 shilling notes. And for those international audiences watching us, we have a dollar and the euro and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
what do you have in terms of Bitcoin?
In terms of Bitcoin, well, you have the initial denomination itself, but you'll find that among other cryptocurrencies, their value is either pegged off or dependent on the value of Bitcoin. When you look at other currencies like Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Monero, and just other coins that are really coming up, you'll find that their value depends on the value of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is their mother.
Yes, so to speak, it has the first mover advantage.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I would really advise for anyone is that study the trends and study the patterns in Bitcoin. When you try to, or rather, if you have knowledge in stock market trading, for instance, you can really carry some of that knowledge forward into understanding how the Bitcoin market is. Because once you understand how that market has its rises, its falls, and its just different trends, demand, buying and selling, and all that, then you can carry some of that knowledge into other cryptocurrencies and how trading them works. Because then the trading ultimately determines and affects the value. Because if people aren't trading, it means they don't believe in that currency enough to trade or try to generate more value from it.
So why is Bitcoin compared favorably to the other, like Ethereum?
Like Ethereum.
What does Bitcoin have?
Now, Bitcoin, apart from the fast mover advantage, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that there's a lot of investment in the infrastructure around it. Now, it means that there's a whole ecosystem of people both trading, accepting, using, adopting, holding, buying, and selling. So really, if those transactions weren't there, I don't think we would have the Bitcoin as we know it today. Yes, because again, one of the things that really pushed it into the front line is that before Bitcoin was just an idea, it was really scattered among different people. You'd find that one has an idea for a digital currency, someone else has an idea for the ledger, someone else has an idea for how it would work in a banking finance instance. But when it came to the 2008 financial crisis, that was the push, because it forced people to think, okay, if there's one institution that can fall and really destroy our financial investments in a snap, then what alternative solution can we look into to protect our financial investments? So can you see the initial point wasn't even really Bitcoin, but the need to secure financial investments. So really that need is what is driving Bitcoin to date.
So is Bitcoin that resistance to external forces?
In part, yes, in part, no. For example, if today many governments agree that, all right, we are going to accept Bitcoin as an acceptable or a secondary currency to our main legal tender, you'll find that more people will be interested in terms of what they can do with it, how they can use it, and how they can adopt it. And that will definitely be a game changer in how its value is implicated and all those things. But you find that if people... not this being on an external factor. If people don't believe in it enough, let's just say it will slowly be forgotten, because then now they'll move to other solutions, they'll move to other protocols, or they just move to other innovations that will suit their needs.
So if let's say the economy was doing bad in Kenya right now, because we've talked about the 2008 financial crisis. If let's say, God forbid, the Kenyan economy, as much as it's doing good right now, it just collapses, and I have my Bitcoin, am I safe?
It depends on quite a number of factors. Now, the first being, why is the economy down? If it's a reason that can be solved within the short term, then typically speaking, I would say that yes, you are safe. But if it's a long-term factor, then you might not be as safe as you think. Yes.
Yes,
that's quite a debate. So I really try to put it in a nutshell. So there's short-term, long-term factors. Is it because of the government? Is it because of politics? And you see all these other
questions from the audience. I'm seeing all of you look shocked at the power of blockchain and everything. I see a couple of hands are up already.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right.
You mentioned you're an economist.
Yes.
Yeah. So, being an economist, I'm trying to... Can you tell me honestly, what are some of the opportunities? Of course, there is you're buying Bitcoin and maybe using it to trade at some point. What are some of the opportunities that Bitcoin is offering? Business-wise,
Yes,
basically.
business-wise, yeah.
That's what I'm interested in because it will only make sense because Bitcoin has experienced that negative force also from locally.
Yeah.
Mr. Patrick Njoroge was not in support of it.
Yeah.
He was very cautious about it, and he spoke about it, and being the CBK governor, that tells you a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe just share with us what are some of the opportunities that can come along with it business-wise. Yeah.
Now, in respect to what the governor did share, the governor has a right to actually put that caution out to the public because as it is right now, if I hold Bitcoin and someone hacks me or gets my private key and gets access to my wallet and they steal all my Bitcoins or whatever other crypto assets that I had, then there's no lawyer that I can go to and say, hey, I need redress. I need a way to get my tokens back. Once they're gone, unfortunately. But then now, in that sense, there are different blockchain protocols that are looking at how they can resolve that problem of arbitration, whereby if I lose my tokens, there should be a way where I can get them back. But as it is right now, so many protocols don't have that element. So governments do have a right to restrict such that if you trade at your own risk. Now, as a business, there are two ways I would say mainly how that you can profit from Bitcoin. Now, taking the case in point or example of the lady Mary. Now, Betty, by accepting Bitcoin, has really opened up people to be able to both trade and to exchange, basically. She can accept, she can sell, and all that. Now, by simply accepting Bitcoin as a business person, you open up yourself to a wider range of clients. Why? Because someone who is traveling internationally and they only have Bitcoins in their wallet, they'll be able to see, I can come to your business and I can buy what I need. I don't necessarily have to go to an exchange or go to a bank, or because probably if they were robbed and all that they have is a public key and you have your public, then you've really sorted them out. Now the other avenue is, especially right now, I would say, partnerships with other businesses that are accepting Bitcoin. Now, let me take, for example, from Bitcoin Cash. It's a fork or a sub option of Bitcoin. But what they've done is that they have a listing of all businesses that accept Bitcoin Cash around the world. Now, you tell me that's without marketing, but you already have existing business partnerships for yourself. And that's really opening you up to a whole new level of trade. Yeah. Yeah.
Then the second bit. There are lots of people now in Kenya, they invite you for these exclusive meetings at Swiss Mount, Banana, and the good hotels.
Yeah.
San Sarova. You go there and you're taken through a Bitcoin journey on you to invest from an individual perspective. What is the value holistically? I know that they're trying to table so people can invest and buy things like that because they also have their own take in the whole thing.
They do.
But from an individual perspective, is there any bottom line, like how I will benefit from the whole thing, basically?
Now, you'll find that there are people who have directly benefited from having bought Bitcoin when it was under $1,000.
Yeah.
Now, for them, they know very well that they've seen this thing rise from $600, $1,000, $20,000, and they've profited, and some of them have lost. Now, some of them are genuinely out to show you the experience and actually just show you, hey, there's a new way to invest money, there's a new way to make money, there's a new way to earn money. I would really just put out a caution in terms of, as you go to these platforms, find out why you personally are going there.
Yeah.
Are you going to learn? Are you going to invest? Are you going to network? Because you can get any of those three things.
Yeah.
If you're going to learn, yes, gather all the knowledge that you can so that you'll be more informed and you'll be able to make better decisions where buying or trading Bitcoin is concerned. When it comes to investing, one golden rule or one really good guideline, when it comes to crypto, if you're not ready to lose that money entirely, then be careful. Just be cautious of how you're investing. And again, don't just invest because someone else has done. Peer pressure. It's okay not to invest. It's absolutely fine. Just be fine to invest when you know that you're comfortable enough to invest this and you know how you're gonna earn your money. And thirdly, if you're going to network, well and good, just be careful and learn how to do your profile so that you also don't land in the hands of the con people. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we're going to go to the next session. Apart from the financial bit, what are some of the other reasons why we need blockchain?
Right. Now, blockchain, again, we come back to the fact that it's a tech distributed ledger, and it really gives us incredible opportunities. One of them is identity management. Now, each of us, more often than not, we have an ID or we have a passport. We have documents that show we are who we are. And when we go to certain places, those documents are required of us. So they'll need your ID so that they can say that you are this person, and because of you being who you say you are, you have access. And in Kenya, that means you have access to banks, certain facilities, and even coverage for insurance. Because without your ID, there are places that you cannot transact. There's a level of business you can't do. There are places where you almost can't exist, if I may put it that way. Now, blockchain can come and, in the sense of immutability, if I say that to your name, I have attached probably a bit of biodata, your fingerprint, maybe your physical address or something else unique about you, then it means no one else on the planet can have a right to have access to that same identity or to that same unique key that identifies you. Now, if I put this out on a very broad context, then it means that it should make visa, travel, other opportunities, global opportunities a lot more accessible. And it's possible by blockchain, although right now there's a lot of research that's going into how this can play out. But I believe, especially with identity, that's one major area we need to look into this tech. Now, the other area that we need to explore is proof of ownership. If this info can't be manipulated easily, it can't be hacked easily, then this should apply to owning assets. You own land, you own houses, you own precious metals, you own art, you own music. There's your creative ideas, your creative work. There should be a way to protect this so that it can't be easily pirated and no one else can just come and say that, hey, I'm the one who owns that, yet you are the one who put in the work into that, right? So blockchain can really be applied in those areas. The other is when it comes to supply chain management, there's a lot of investment that's going into coming up with ways to track that. If I got this product from this supplier, I should be able to tell that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is where the value chain is contributing to this product or this service. And if this is where my loophole is, then I know how to handle that. I know how to respond. I know how to make my products better. I know how to make my services better, right? So some of those, since we've really kind of dwelt on finance, I won't really dwell too much on that, but what we call what's being called insurtech is also being looked at, because as an insurer, you want to know that this person and this claim is genuine. Too many companies have lost money in just false claims and all the collusions that come in that space. But I believe blockchain will definitely bring a solution when it comes to the whole insurance industry. Yeah, so if I put them in those major areas, then we can look at applicability. Yeah.
So there's a blog and actually some market intelligence that was saying that blockchain could have been used to maybe prevent the hacking in the US general elections.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
My take, blockchain, first of all, let me start with saying that blockchain, again, by virtue of immutability, it's been looked at in terms of how it can give secure voting platforms and secure voting mechanisms for people. But that, one of the things it really depends on is a government actually accepting that we will use this voting mechanism because we want a sincere election, a true election, and one that really reflects the voices of the people. Now, when it comes to the 2016 general election, depending on the systems that we're using, if they were vulnerable, then yes, we can see the results that came to be. Now, in going forward, I would say that there's definitely a need for governments to really look into how they can accept these emerging technologies so that they can have more integral elections.
Do you think that if we could adopt blockchain in Kenya, then we couldn't hear stories about elections being rigged?
Honestly, yes.
So we are not adopting blockchain in Kenya?
We need to. I believe we are adopting. It's just the rate at which we're adopting it that could be really interesting to look at.
Okay.
Yes.
We are not adopting blockchain.
No, really we are. Because, as we will see, the different companies that are spearheading the adoption of blockchain. There's already a task force that was set in place by the president to look into how this tech can be, just applied for different uses in Kenya. So I say we are adopting. It's just the rate at which we're adopting that we need to probably study and understand better. Yeah.
Sure, and you've talked about government regulation, the government not accepting blockchain and stuff. What other challenges are there?
Now, for regulation and acceptance, of course, is one major challenge because different governments are taking their own pace and their own time to understand what blockchain is, what it implies for their country, what it implies for their business, their international trade, and all that. So it's good that governments take time to learn what it is and how it will have an impact on the operations. So the more they take time to learn, of course, then that will be one challenge. But if governments refuse, then that definitely means that people can't take it up. So some of the challenges that we can probably cite and pick off the top: immutability. If the blockchain is immutable, then that means you can't just change that data easily. And let's say someone copied your artwork and they posted it on a specific blockchain, and you as the rightful owner have the initial proof, but it takes you a while probably to prove that you are the initial owner, you are the one who put in the work, and now this other one has to be proven to have been the wrong person. So when it comes to just proving and provenance, really, that's one major challenge. But I believe that, and I can see, or rather, that there are different blockchain protocols that are looking into governance. And that on-chain governance just simply means that if there's malicious code or if there's an error in the code, then there's a mechanism to review that code and actually just make sure that you have the right info in place. Another challenge is when it comes to scalability. Scalability just basically means how many transactions per second can this blockchain handle. So the first blockchains were quite slow, and you'd say that it's a very slow database, and honestly so, because for your transaction probably could take up 30 minutes, because what it depends on is what consensus mechanism have they chosen. Are they using proof of work? Are they using proof of stake, delegated proof of stake? And whichever they use, it means that the ones who are confirming info on the network, they have to take time to actually agree that yes, this is the right info. Until all of them, or rather a specific threshold, agree, then that info can come on chain. So the more we have scalability being solved, and there are different protocols looking to that, like EOS and Metabase, then we will have more efficiency, faster transactions, and definitely be better for everyone. Then arbitration gaps, that's another challenge with blockchain. If you lose your keys, you lose your tokens, you've lost them, true or not true. Now, if we have more forums for arbitration, then that means that there should be mechanisms, or there can be mechanisms whereby you can get your tokens back or you can get your assets back. And yeah, I think those are some of the main challenges. Privacy issues, I wouldn't say it's too much of a challenge, because for a blockchain like Bitcoin, you have what you call pseudonymity, such that it's your key number or your public key to another public key. Now, someone can read that and say, okay, this public key has received probably 8,000 Bitcoins. So who is that? As a hacker, of course, I will want to find out which public keys are. Can I hack them? Where are they? And I try to find out more about them. But then you have other cryptocurrencies that are coming up to solve that problem by bringing quite higher levels of anonymity. And one of them is Monero, which has been really recommended. So yeah, we can look into other solutions that are related to that probably as time goes. Yeah.
So having discussed the challenges, what is now the impact? What impact can we feel? Should we explore blockchain maximally? What should we expect?
Now, on a very practical note, let me start with what has been, what is, and probably what could be. So what has been is that we've seen people who have really profited from blockchain protocols, and not just blockchain protocols, but let's just say Bitcoin to start with, because if they bought Bitcoin early, of course, they profited from the boom. Others were able to buy into ICOs when they were less than $1 or percentage of $1, and they saw the ICO or the company's value rise to well over $1. And if you bought something if you were part of the founders, for example, and you got a very handsome part of the tokens, let's just say there are people who've really just become millionaires, and that's why you hear the term crypto millionaires, or such hashtags coming along. So that's where it comes to the financial bit. Yes, if you study again, there are more companies that are really looking to raise finances through ICOs, and that's initial coin offerings. So if you do your study well or you do your due diligence, you can find promising projects. There are scams, of course, and close to 800 companies have been struck off as dead ICOs or dead, just really dead initiatives. But there are others that are really legit and you can profit from them if you're able to buy in early, or not just buy in early, but contribute as a founder and contribute your skill, because then now they pay you back when now they raise their funds. So that's the first way. Now, there are different careers that are coming up just because of blockchain. And for software developers, definitely these are the ones on the front line, because they're the ones that are running the code, building the architecture, building the actual blockchains, and getting blockchains to communicate with each other, and just really creating the possibilities when it comes to blockchain. And it's not just for blockchain, but for emerging technologies, the AI, IoT, machine learning, data science. Software engineers are really on the front line. Now, when it comes to blockchain, again, we have other careers that are coming up, such as researchers, consultants, the lawyers, because then now lawyers need to study when it comes to these blockchain protocols. What is the balance between code and law, existing law? Will we have emerging law? Will we have precedents? Will we have Ricardian contracts replacing actual contracts? So for lawyers, that's a really serious field to look into. Then we have fintech, of course, the banking and finance guys, accountants. This is definitely a field to step into. For guys in arts and media, creativity is really booming in this space, because as these companies come up, they need representation, they need visual placement, and this is where the artists come in. Your branding, if you're good in branding, social media marketing, then this is again a very exciting space. Those who are doing media and video, TV, that's also an interesting space, because they get to tell the stories as they are being told, as history is being written, as history is being made. And then one other crucial area, of course, is education and training. People need to know what this tech is about, because sometimes you mention blockchain, you mention Bitcoin, someone just looks at you like, nope, you've lost me. But the more we have conversations over tea, over just casual chats, we'll be able to help people appreciate the fact that this is tech, we can use it in this way, we can use it in that way. So education trainers really need to come up and step up in this space. And of course, community builders. Because if a coin comes up, if a company comes up, but it has no community around it, then chances are that it will crash, unfortunately. So community builders really come in important in this particular regard.
Okay. You said that if I wanted to have, let's say, a Bitcoin, I'd go to the ATMs and stuff like that and buy from friends.
Yeah.
So what companies now are being involved directly in Bitcoins, be it regulation, education, mining, and everything? Who can I run to, instead of like an individual? Who can I run to for more information, for regulation and things like that?
Now, the different companies in Kenya who've really taken up the lead in that space. And the first is the Blockchain Association of Kenya. They were formed just to really create an understanding and appreciation around blockchain in Kenya and who is involved, what you can do and all that. The other companies in blockchain that have found reliable so far, there's BitHub Africa. They are an incubator. So for them, they've really taken up more of a developmental approach. There's EOS Nairobi. It has a very vibrant community. They've really been active there last year, hosting several meetups. We also have a company by the name Land Lay-by. Land Lay-by now has taken up an initiative in looking how land registries can be put up on blockchain. So by the experience, of course, I would say that they're reliable. Andela, Moringa School, and Technobrain are others that have credibility in the space in terms of training. And anytime that any of these companies personally, I attended several events at the start of the year, and I got to meet very resourceful people who really were able to guide me more into what I can look into, who I can ask questions, and just different things I needed to know. Yeah.
Well, any question from the audience?
Thanks for the insight.
All right.
However, in the last few last 2 years, has been the whole aspect of the right to be forgotten. Now, with blockchain, we are getting to understand that you can only append, you cannot delete. And given that the internet architecture is moving towards the blockchain, the right of privacy and the right to be forgotten, I mean, what do you see there's going to be a clash there?
Now, all right. Now, when it comes to the right of privacy, that's one thing that initiatives or startups and companies will really have to factor when they're coming up with initiatives and products and services for people. Now, the right to be forgotten, that by the fact of immutability on blockchains, that's of course a very gray area right now, if I may put it that way. But my thought is that there's need for greater communication between individuals and blockchain protocol miners, if I may put it that way, or the people who are actually doing the validation on the network. And there's need for a way in which, through the codes, of course, that these people who are confirming or adding information can override or overwrite that information, or find a way to censor, in as much as, yes, a blockchain is supposed to be, or rather overcome the problem of censorship, but there's need for increasingly having trust mechanisms whereby that information can either be protected or censored or just handled in a different way, if I may put it that way. Yeah, because the more we move on to progress in blockchain, there's the ethical question coming up. We've had a phase whereby code was law, code is king, or code is just everything. And we're coming to a place whereby I think we'll need to incorporate more of ethical issues onto code, governance onto code. And in as much as that may seem a bit contradictory, but yet at the same time, we find that if we're really to develop, if we're really to adopt this tech, if we're really to use it for everyday life and seamless operations, we will need more ethics and governance coming onto the code protocol itself. Yeah.
Okay, any other question? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. What do you think in the Kenyan market about the
Neurocoin, personally, I haven't quite studied it too much, but let me just say, as for any coin that is really offered to the public, there's need to just do your due diligence and find out whether you want to hold it or not, because you don't really have to have all these crypto assets, honestly. Yeah.
So would you say it's a viable coin or it's a scam?
Okay, honestly, I haven't studied too much into it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, do you know somebody who has used the Bitcoin so far?
Who has used the Bitcoin? Yes.
Like who?
Allow me to protect
Privacy.
Yeah, privacy. Okay, as a representative of also my network, out of ethical concerns, unless someone has allowed me to speak of their involvement or their assets, I cannot quite do that. So unless probably after the session, then I can ask for their permission. Then
Okay. Tell us then what they bought.
What they bought.
Yes.
Even that is it's just private. It's out of respect for for the information that they shared.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Any other question?
Well, I have a paper here, but I'm finding it hard to pronounce some names here.
Okay.
It's I think maybe you can just look at it.
All right.
Ethereum.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe you can just maybe you can just explain to us a little bit about what it is.
All right. I can see this is OnyxCoin ICO. All right. What questions do you have about it in particular?
In terms of okay, first of all, what is Ethereum? Is it?
Ethereum.
Yes.
Ethereum is a
Yes.
blockchain protocol, and their token is the ETH or ETH. Yes.
So, what happens when, in terms of companies coming, using that particular protocol. Because if you look at that paper, there's a company called
Yeah, Quaco.
Quaco, yeah.
Mm.
So what is the approach behind it?
All right. Now, primarily for Ethereum, the main difference that it's brought away from the Bitcoin protocol is that they created or they enabled smart contracts. Now, a smart contract is just it's a program that allows specific conditions to be executed, such that if this and this happens, then this and this should be executed, or this then this should be paid. For example, if I pay this, then this should happen, or this should be authorized. Now. You'll find that many ICOs or many initial coin offerings, many companies launched their projects on Ethereum. And by launching their projects on Ethereum, it's that they wanted to raise the funds through the probably what you'd call the ERC token, ERC-20 token. And once they've raised the funds that they have, then they can build their own ecosystems of the ICO or the product that they wanted to build. So you'll find that for quite a majority of ICOs, they were based on Ethereum. Then now after the launch, they either create their own coin or they continue to use the Ethereum. Now, specifically, I would say for Quaco, the Quaco marketplace, I can see that there's what they want to raise. Well, this roadmap, I would say, is what any ICO really would follow. So I don't know what the minimum viable product is or what who is behind the project, but I would really need to sit down with this a little bit more to understand what they want to bring forward in terms of value, and especially the community that's behind this coin. Because without the product, without the community, then there's really a question of how sustainable it would be. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. For me, I'm particularly interested in the role of the government plays as far as implementation of blockchain in a given country. And of particular interest is the government-formed task force on blockchain and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So far in the Kenyan market, I've seen IBM through partnership with Jacob Foods. I've launched microfinancing of a blockchain for sort of food vendors. Now, I would like to get your feedback. If, let's say you're in that government position, you're in that blockchain task force.
Yeah.
What would be your first move? Because I'm thinking the whole concept about blockchain, it doesn't match up with the concept of government.
Yeah.
Government is all about control.
Yeah.
Blockchain is all about independence. You do your transactions, but no one knows what you've done. No one knows what you're bought to, so on and so forth. The government likes to see what you guys are. What are my citizens doing? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
Now, blockchain, there's a huge disconnect between government and blockchain, and probably it's what has informed the government. Let's form a task force so that we can get any projects that our youth are doing on blockchain and at least keep them updated.
Yeah.
Now, let me get back to your role now as the sitting member of the blockchain task of the government. So what do you think? What do you do? What will be your perspective? Do you look at it from a top-down approach, from the government bringing in blockchain, or from a bottom-up? Let startups compete and generate innovations regarding blockchain.
Look at the camera, someone from the government might be listening.
Definitely, they might be listening. Now, allow me to bring it in three perspectives. Now, the first is that governments being involved in blockchain, yes, there's a bit of an idea clash because a blockchain is supposed to be decentralized technology and the government by nature is centralized. Now, that doesn't lock out a government from participating in blockchain protocols or blockchain adoption in their country because actually one of the practices of good governance is finding out what is really affecting the public as trade goes on or as people continue to be part of a country. It's important to find out what is going on in the country. And I really commend the step of the government to establish the task force because from a regulatory perspective, it's very important to have laws that not necessarily govern the blockchain itself or the tech itself, but how people interact with that ecosystem or that protocol or that tech. Now, let me cite, for example, Singapore and Hong Kong and a lot of Asian communities. You'll find that there are governments that have sandbox policies, and sandbox policies just basically means that we're creating a space for you as a startup. Come and test your tech. Come and test your initiative. Come and test your idea. Build it. We will fund you. We will support you, or we will allow you to have a test run so that if this comes out successfully and you're able to generate revenue for the country, you're able to get your targets out, get your products, and you become a producer in that ecosystem. You become a producer in that economy. And if you're a producer, definitely then you and others like you can contribute significantly to the GDP. Now, for governments and blockchain, one of the things probably they'll hear better is GDP. And if you're contributing or startups are contributing to GDP, then there's need to enable them so that you have encouraged investment and spending. So, of course, for governments, they will want to see that. And where, of course, in the long term, they'll want to come in is in the area of taxation. But you can't just bring all these regulations without understanding how the startups work. So it's very important for governments to be supportive of startups in the space, such that these startups, and especially those that have potential to generate a lot of income and a lot of impact, of course, for people at the end of the day, those are the ones that need support. And for that support to come up, then you need to understand such startups probably take this time, they need this enabling framework, or they need this in terms of manpower and all that stuff. So if it rushes, for example, to put the laws and saying that a blockchain startup should operate as a normal company, then you'll find that there are really challenges that come up in that space. So what I really recommend for the government, or if now I'm a sitting member of the task force, I would really recommend that people are encouraged by different ways to participate, innovate, bring their ideas, bring the suggestions, bring the solutions. I know this is a very idealistic context, but honestly speaking, this is what I think. Let the startups innovate. Let them generate the solutions. Let them generate services. Let them just bring out the products. And once they bring out this and they create a sustainable form of income and impact, then let's find out how we can bring that on a governmental table in form of now taxes or tax holidays and all those other ways. Yeah.
Wow. Any other question?
Where do you see the price of Bitcoin at the end of the year, a year from now?
Now, honestly, there are different factors. Well, I've had it coming to about 25,000 or 30,000, but allow me not to speculate on a very honest note.
Is that dollars or
Yes, dollars.
$30,000.
Yes.
And now it's $8,000.
Yes, now it's $8,000.
Where did you say someone come from?
Now, let me not tell you to rush to buy, because this is on a purely speculative assessment. Now, it might get to that 10,000. It might not. It might stay around that 8,000, because there are so many different factors that determine that. So allow me not to act as a what would I say? As a pro Bitcoin miner, so that when the when the end of year comes and you say, why did she say that?
but we can be sure it's not going down. The price is not going down, it's going up. It could go
Let me go back to the trading aspect. It could go down, but it could also go up. What you need to be watchful of, what you need to keep your eye on is the market, the demand, and especially the news that's around the Bitcoin ecosystem. Because if more people adopt it, definitely that means higher demand, and that could mean higher price. But if more people are resistant, then that could mean at the same time that it will be in higher demand and for higher value. So that could also drive the price up. But again, if more people adopt it, then all these other factors come into play. So allow me not to put a fixed price. But what I will say is look at the market. That one will tell you a little bit more clearly.
Is there any other question? The audience?
So do you see Bitcoin being used widely as a currency? Because currently it's being used as an asset.
Yeah.
You see, you've talked about trading.
Yes.
Now that's what I hear most Bitcoin holders talk about. But now as a currency, generically the one who guys who formulated Bitcoin, they wanted it to be used widely as a currency. Now, I had thought that it was sort of probably. You can correct me because you've done economics. I don't think okay. I thought for when the Bitcoin came to market, comparing it with traditional currencies was sort of like a huge mistake because now we peg Bitcoin against the dollar.
Yeah.
So there's no way we'll move from the dollar. We'll stick with it. Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think it's at some point we'll reach where Bitcoin uses a currency? Because now there are all other competitors of digital currencies are coming out in the market.
Now, to begin with, Bitcoin was initially a utility token. Now, a utility token just means that its value is dependent on what you assign to it, such that no government is currently obliged to accept Bitcoin as a currency. And that's why you'll have all these regulation per se wars, if I may put it that way, or contentions in regulation. Now, as time goes by and as people continue to innovate, you'll find that there are quite a number of governments that are advocating for digital currencies that are either backed by their local currencies or that are independent of any other factors, but they want a digital currency of some sort because they see a potential in the technology. So as we go forward, we might move from fiat or traditional currency to digital currency, but that really remains to be seen in terms of the levels of education and awareness that each government will create. And this is away from the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that are existing right now. Because let's just put it as it is. At this point in time, no government really has regulation accepting cryptocurrencies as any kind of currency within their borders or within their jurisdictions. So it depends. If we move forward with time and more governments see the need to accept digital currencies, then we could have more acceptance, because then now they'll come back in time and trace. All right, so when people started using Bitcoin and all these other digital currencies, the EOS, the Ethereum, and the rest, then how did people trade with them? How did people accept them as a store of value? How did people accept them as a medium of exchange? And those are some of the three key attributes for a commodity really to be considered as a currency. So that will be regulation and a lot of education and awareness before it becomes adoption. Yeah, so I would say it's a long shot. Yeah.
If you read the UN reports, they'll tell you that out of the global population of about 8.2 billion.
Yeah.
3/4 of the world lives below $1 a day.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a currency that costs right now about 800,000 Kenya shillings. How practical is it to percolate to the Mama Mboga, to the Wanjiru, to make a difference in their lives? Because once you just mentioned $8,000,
Yeah.
I need to feed my family.
Yeah.
I mean, basic things.
Yeah.
Sukuma wiki and unga, even unga to 120 pop is an issue. So, is digital currency, or rather Bitcoin and blockchain in the application of finance, is it really a viable solution towards the global agenda of the sustainable development goals, or is it just a rich man's thing? It's like a Lamborghini. Everybody wants a Lamborghini, but yeah, you can just put it up and what's your take? How practical is it?
Now, when it comes to dealing, especially with those that are living under $1 a day,
3/4.
yeah, the 3/4. Really, let's just say quite a majority who are living in poverty. They can't afford. They don't even have the basic access, internet access, to even know what these coins are. Now, when it comes to blockchain, because now let me just begin with blockchain before I go to the cryptocurrencies. Now, in terms of application, on a very practical note, if we can get ways and methods of getting these people identified so that we find out of the Mama Mboga or the one who is the small scale producers, let me say the small scale producers, the one who's selling tomatoes from their farm or their small garden, or the one who is creating or generating, the maths, the little things that the communities use. We can find a way through blockchain, or we can generate solutions through blockchain to have them identified, and not just identified, but assess how much value they're contributing to the global economy and not just their national economies. Because once we put a face to the name, that we know this person is producing this much every day, then we have a way to assess and to generate more value. Because unfortunately for many governments, if something doesn't generate what I would say sustainable GDP, it doesn't get as much investment. But if we're able to identify these people and we know this is what they're contributing, this is what they're moving, and this is what they're adding to the economy, then it's easier, or it's even more practical to find ways to support them in and to create incentives so that we stimulate or we generate further production. So for blockchain and bringing especially identity and provenance to their contribution, the economic contribution, the economic activities, it's even easier to bring in health coverage. And yes, there's been a debate about universal basic income in terms of getting people an income that can sustain them to a certain extent. It won't quite bring them some level of comfort, but it'll just meet their basic needs. And the goal of this, or rather the intention of this, has really been to try and stimulate economic productivity, because you find that for so many people, one of just the main challenges is just the economic productivity. Yes, you want to produce, but you don't have the money to probably buy the input and to create market and to generate sustainable income. So blockchain can really be instrumental in bringing identity, and through identity inclusivity, so that more of these people we just don't refer to them as the bottom billion or the forgotten majority, or all those other tags that we've been putting on them. We'll know that these are significant contributors, although on a small scale, but put together it's a massive contribution. Because let's admit that without them we wouldn't really have the bigger industries going as far as they would go. So my take is that they don't have to buy the Bitcoin, they don't have to buy the cryptocurrencies, they don't have to buy it honestly, but they can profit from the tech being customized for their use. And I think recently we have, I'm not sure if it's Dash or Dollar, but there's a currency that's come up that's really enabling people to just do easier financial transactions. And you find that if I, as a small scale trader, can find a simple way of using my phone to either send money, and that's what I need. I didn't necessarily need a bank account, didn't necessarily need a ledger or just anything big. I just needed something small scale, and that's my solution. If blockchain meets that need, then there we have it. We have a winner for them. Yeah.
So thank you very much. It has been a very engaging session. How many have benefited? A show of hands.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm Ashari.
All right.
So now my question is, there's blockchain, and there are the apps that have come out of blockchain.
Yeah.
Bitcoin being one of them, Ethereum being one of them. Looking at the apps that have come out of blockchain, what are your thoughts on distributed apps? One, maybe apps that are made on top of Ethereum. In terms of scalability. The other part is in terms of currencies, processing time, proof of work. What are your thoughts on its damages on the environment? In terms of currencies, distributed apps, ways of people to benefit. For example, currently most people benefit from trading.
Yeah.
In terms of Bitcoin and there are over 1,000 currencies now.
Yeah.
So most people benefit from trading. Developers are benefiting from one you mentioned, ICOs, whereby they create their own currency and all that, they profit up, marketing kidogo, people pumping money for it. Then we have companies that are coming up building distributed apps on top of blockchain, using Ethereum as a virtual machine.
Yeah.
We're looking at companies like in the prediction markets, mostly betting, whereby they're coming up with apps for revolutionize online betting and all that. Which other benefits do you see coming out in the near future that will provide like a business case in terms of blockchain? Yeah? Basically,
Those three. All right, so let me start with DApps on Ethereum and transaction time. Now, transaction time, just as I've mentioned, scalability is one of the issues that, especially even Ethereum, they're really trying to work on how they can resolve the transaction time, because it's one of the challenges that has hindered quite a number of projects from launching to the level that they had wanted to launch. So scalability, I'd say, is one of the main discussions in the blockchain space in terms of how that can be resolved. EOS protocol has recently reached about at least 2,000 transactions per second, and they're planning to scale to 10,000, 100,000, and above that. So you find that the more blockchain protocols can solve that problem, the more efficient we will have all these transactions going, and that would be lesser time. So that if I want to send you a token from here to wherever, it won't matter the distance, it's just within seconds or within even a minute. Let's just put it as practically as possible because of the element of the consensus mechanism that's being used. And that now preempting the second question, we have proof of work, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, different blockchain consensus algorithms that are in existence. Now, proof of work has had quite an environmental impact because we've seen, especially with Bitcoin, the machines that are being used in Iceland, they consume quite a lot of power, and there's a lot of money that's really being spent on that. Now, long-term impact, I'm not quite sure of the assessment, but we really need to ask questions about how that can be sustainable or what alternatives can be used so that there's not such a heavy impact on the environment, right? So that's probably why now people are looking at proof of stake as a consensus mechanism, whereby if you have a significant stake or you have a prescribed amount of stake, then you call the shots on probably what will be a fund. EOS runs on the delegated proof of stake, whereby there are 21 block producers, of which these 21 have the right to confirm transactions or deny on that network. So the more we have, again, different consensus mechanism coming to place. Here there's one proof of impact, proof of viewership, and I think it just depends on the industry or the need of that protocol being developed. And that's what will influence the impact at the end of the day, right? Now, when it comes to that decentralized applications and how to benefit from them, I would say that the DApp or the decentralized application is just at its heart code and a smart contract. It executes such that if these actions are fulfilled, then you get certain results. And that's at the very basic essence of it. It's a code, all right? Now, if the developer, of course, will directly benefit from developing the code because they'll earn for their skill directly. But if you want to build a business case around, then you need to look at what extra services are being built on top of this, this protocol. What other incentives are being offered to people, even to use it to begin with? Because sometimes people just need an incentive to use that application. People just need clear way forward, like what's in it for me? That's what they're asking. Because if they have to learn how to use your app, then it needs to be clear that this is what they will get. So for anyone who wants to build a business case, they need to answer that question as simply as possible. Okay, so I've come across quite a number of projects on EOS that are set to launch by the end of the year, and it takes, let's just say, okay, yes, it takes time, and also it depends on your interests. Because if you're not interested in a particular area, then let's just say you may not put too much time into finding out what's there. I have come across projects that deal with betting, others are dealing with games. And you see, for games, it's very easy because you play the game, get the reward, play the game, get this or get that qualification or earn this and that. So I think we'll see probably apps decentralized applications related to games kind of taking the lead. But then now, as these ones take the lead and people experiment and find out, okay, this can work, this can't work, then now we'll see more apps coming up for, especially for instance, in communication and just other really wider ecosystems. So one of the main questions you need to answer is, how are people going to use it? Why should they use it? And as simply as possible. Yeah.
Okay. Opportunities?
Opportunities. Well, just as an emphasis, okay, well, specific to dApps or just generally?
Whichever you're comfortable with.
Well, just allow me just to reiterate. If you're a gamer, of course, learn how to come up with new games that people can play, that will engage them, that will be creative. I think guys who are in the creative economy right now will really benefit, and especially you come up with solutions for kids, come up with solutions for families, come up with solutions for just things that will engage people with this tech. At this level, anything that will create awareness, anything that will make people engage with this tech in the most simple and fun way possible, I think that will be quite a winner, so to speak. If you are, whichever profession you're in, whether it's finance, whether it's art, legal, and you think that it's not really going to change in the next few years, I'd encourage you, find out in the next 5 years, is it likely to be the same? In the next 10 years, is it likely to be the same? And what are some of the things that are likely to change or shift within your industry? Because, fine, blockchain is not the king of tech right now, if I may put it that way. There are other emerging technologies, there are other emerging solutions, there are other emerging ideas, there are other emerging innovations. Today, blockchain is our example, but tomorrow it could be something else. We might find something that will top blockchain and we might actually forget about it and we wonder, wow, what were we thinking about when we were talking about blockchain all those years ago? And it could be the tech of the future such that we find that we have so many apps and so many industries running on it that we don't even think that we're using blockchain. Because like now for internet, we're not conscious that online. That's the question. Same way M-Pesa became, do you have M-Pesa? No matter what subscriber you are in whatever network in Kenya, because it became a part of our culture. So in the same way, if blockchain becomes part of our culture, then we won't necessarily be asking the same questions that we're asking right now, because it will have really been integrated into our transactions, to our business, how we handle information, how we share information, how we transact with business, with people, even just sending money from one person to another. That could change. So what I'd encourage is that find out for your industry or for you, for whatever your interest is, how is tech likely to change that? And once you find out how tech is likely to change that for you, then at least you'll have an idea of how to approach the change, or how to handle the change, how to manage the change, or maybe you won't need to change. It's still possible, but I suspect we will really need to, just manage the change that will come through tech. Yeah.
Wow, that was very insightful. I believe you've learned a lot, right?
Maybe one last question.
Yes.
I didn't quite get the difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And which between the two is the most stable cryptocurrency?
Now, for Bitcoin and Ethereum, Bitcoin had first mover advantage, but in terms of stability, both of them are quite strong in each in their own right. Although Bitcoin has had higher value over the years, but Ethereum also has I would say the kind of value it's generated, not just as a cryptocurrency, but an enabler of other cryptocurrencies. So each of them has their strong points, I would say. Because now for Bitcoin, you don't have the smart contracts. But for Bitcoin, you don't have the smart contracts, Ethereum you do. And right now they're looking at how to improve that. But if they can't do that at a certain level, then we need to look at the next protocol that will enable that, so that we move away from, not necessarily move away, but we have something more than just the crypto token. And now we have the decentralized applications. Yeah. Now away from, so that we talk about all these other things we're talking about, identity, security, proof of ownership. It depends on the strength and the integrity of the smart contract behind that. So when you come back to code and we come back to the consensus mechanism, then we'll find that there are those who will not use Bitcoin, but they will accept Bitcoin for the token that they're using, or as complementary to the token that they're using. Yeah, so that you don't necessarily have one that's totally dependent on Bitcoin or Ethereum, but all these other blockchain protocols that come up, they'll say that we have our token, but we also accept 1, 2, 3 other tokens. Yeah.
Oh, great. I think it has been an informative discussion. This is an area where there are so many questions. It's unfortunate that we are remaining with only 2 hours also, so we will not take more questions.
Have one
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
So
just a final question.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, Bitcoin has been an enabler
Yeah.
in illegal activities due to its private nature, whereby it conceals information of people transacting, and also its other feature where once I send you money, it's irreversible. And then the other disadvantage that there's no central authority behind it, so there's no dispute resolution place. Okay, there has been some kind of improvement in trying to control its use in illegal activities. But what do you think about distributed apps in illegal activity online, whereby a case scenario is not necessarily illegal. There can be a case scenario where you can create a distributed app for e-commerce, just a basic app for e-commerce, whereby if I'm selling something to you and you want to buy it from me, if I build the app on top of Ethereum, I can have a smart contract that says I can only receive the payment if you have received the goods. Also, if it's a digital good,
Yeah.
So Ethereum, I know you can build an app that has escrow, and it can hold the money in escrow but then Ethereum is like an operating system. The currency behind Ethereum is called Ether.
Okay.
So Ethereum is not a currency.
It's an
It's like an operating system for blockchain, whereby you can build blockchain apps on top of it.
Okay.
And the programming language is Solidity, but the other simpler languages like Crystal, where they work more like Ruby on Rails.
Okay.
So with your Rails there, it will be very easy for you.
Yeah.
So my question is, e-commerce, peer-to-peer e-commerce on a distributed app, no central governing authority. So it means if I can sell drugs on it, and I can use Ether as my currency. So distributed apps have that ability of being used for the wrong use case. We have seen dark web markets like Silk Road. Although Silk Road was built on top of PHP called Igniter, but the currency used was Bitcoin because of its private nature. So the question is how it's in terms of it being used for the right causes. Blockchain is a good technology. It has been misused before. Most of you have used it unknowingly. If you download movies using BitTorrent, that's a small mini version of the blockchain. Because now it's a peer-to-peer, which those apps are all peer-to-peer. So only that the resources they use is your machine, the machine, all of your nodes. So my question is in terms of trust, it being used for ethical purposes. There's usually that disadvantage also with open source apps, because they're open to anyone, and most guys who are opportunists will use them for their own benefit in terms of using them for their own reason. What are your thoughts on trying to control this kind of apps from being used for the wrong reasons to the right reasons? We see in South Africa recently someone who came up with a cryptocurrency that is more private and is being taken up by the dark web called Monero. You've heard of Monero?
Yeah.
You see, Monero, the the thing that motivated them to make it more secure, more private, is because Bitcoin nowadays you can be able to track back. The researchers in the US have been able to track back who's sending money from where and who because of the track trade using Bitcoin. So Monero now is being taken up by the dark web because of its private nature. What will stop these guys from building more illegal nature apps that end up making our society, like spoiling our society? You know, my kid can take drugs. I cannot stop her from taking drugs if she has access to internet, whereby it can be shipped to her like scholarship information from wherever. Yeah. So it can also blindfold me, but she cannot use drugs. So what will stop? What are the initiatives being taken to stop these apps from being used for the wrong reasons?
All right. Now, people are really looking into how to develop governance on the blockchain. And governance just basically means that if you identify certain actions that should be flagged or are of concern or are clearly malicious, then that gives the consensus actors the right not to approve those transactions or not to validate them to a certain extent until there's either more information that's provided, or you find that there's at least proof that this thing is not illegal. So, for example, for EOS, at least I've interacted a little bit more with it in terms of how they've brought out the whole governance debate. And there's a case whereby about at least quite a significant amount of money, let me say that, because I don't remember exactly how much it was, but I know it was in the millions of dollars that was in questionable hands, such that there are people who were subject to phishing attacks. And through these phishing attacks, they stood to lose their tokens. And this was during the transfer of tokens from ERC20 to the EOS protocol now. So, because now you find that you want to register your keys through the EOS protocol, but someone gets a phony website and you lose your private key. And of course, now they have control of your tokens. So, what's the action that was prescribed at that point, this being in June, is that the block producers acted to freeze specific accounts that now are in question. And that generated a lot of feedback from the community. Some positive, some negative, because some felt, why should the tokens or why should the accounts be frozen? Why should the block producers act? Why should not the governing authority, because there's supposed to be the EOS co-arbitration forum that was now set out to handle all these issues of tokens and integrity and phishing and compromise. So when you have such debates coming up, then it really forces us to think about ethics and integrity governance coming onto the blockchain, so that you don't just have code, because code itself is neutral. It can be used for any purpose. It just depends on the person who's using it. So it comes back, can we incorporate governance and all these issues of integrity to the code itself? And how long will it take to do that? Because if it takes long, again, we'll still have, unfortunately, all these malicious projects coming up. And we may not really stop them, but that's where regulators come in, because regulators can act, because then in the case of Bitcoin, they've found a way to trace that, okay, this is the person who's acting, or this is the account that's acting. And for there, I'm not sure how long it will take to develop a way to track that, but it's very important to find that, or to develop ways of actually tracking these malicious, such that, yes, you may not be able to track the initial actor, but you should be able to follow the trail so that you find who is being affected. Can we address, for example, the problem of drugs from the recipients of the drugs, so that from the recipients we're able to trace that they received it from these and these people. So at the end of the day, what I really is important is the issue of governance. How soon it can be integrated into the code will determine how quickly we can address those problems of the malicious actors. Yeah. Great.
Wow. So as I said, we only have 2 hours, so please let's limit the number of questions, ladies and gentlemen. We are done with Q&A session for today. I think from the questions I've seen, we'll have a follow-up session.
All right.
Yes, by the same host, of course. Yes, and the same facilitator, so that we can have more questions about it. What is clear right now is that there is so much application for the good. Yeah, that was actually most people when we were inviting them, they were really scared. You know, are we coming to talk about the bad things about Bitcoin and what have you and stuff like that? And honestly, for me as an individual, it's not because it's like $8,000 that I've not bought it.
Yeah.
It's because I was concerned about
security.
it. It's not about $8,000. That's you're wondering why I've not been able to purchase it. So I think now that I have known that it can be put into good use, I think I will invest when I'm free. So that at least, have you invested yourself?
Not personally. I haven't bought Bitcoin.
Investors are never free.
Yes.
Okay.
What I'd give as my thought, especially on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Answer the question, why are you using it?
Yeah.
If you're not using it to trade, if you're not using it to buy specific things that you've been required to, pay in Bitcoin, or you're looking at, okay, this thing could go up in future in value. So in that way, you're acting as a speculator, not necessarily an investor.
Yeah.
So if you do your due diligence and you say that, okay, within the next 6 months, I am likely to buy a product that will require me to pay in Bitcoin. That's a legitimate reason for you to access either part of or convert part of your resources into Bitcoin. And if you're likely to trade, or now you've done your due diligence, you know how the markets work, you know whether you want to be a day trader, you know whether you want to be a long-term speculator, you want to profit from the highest lows within a specific week, then buy a certain amount that you can be comfortable losing, so that when you trade, you'll be able to learn how to profit from trading. And now the final reason, if you are convinced genuinely that Bitcoin's value will rise beyond the $8,000 in a few years to come, and it will be digital gold as people say, then buy it knowing that that's your personal conviction, not because other people are saying it, not because you've been told, but because you can account for your choice and you can be responsible for the same choice.
Yeah.
Yes, of which, this might be a little bit off topic, but tomorrow there'll be an event at NILAB that's hosted by EOS Nairobi.
Yeah.
And at that event, there'll be discussions of some of these things. For example, the developments in the EOS protocol, the decentralized applications. There'll be a call in from some of the actual block producers in the one of the top 21. There'll be a talk about community currencies as well, because one of them being Bancor and Bangla. They're an offshoot of cryptocurrencies, but you'll find that they really help you to understand how the element of community comes important into the whole blockchain ecosystem.
What time?
It'll be from 3 o'clock to about 7 p.m. NILAB, but you can register online through Eventbrite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So before we are concluding, so before we have the customary Legibra dance, in order for our guests, I'm going to invite Felix Ocheng, our business development manager,
All right.
to wrap things up. Our COO opened the meeting. Our CTO hijacked it, and now we're going to have our BDM closing it. That is before the dance that we are going to perform. So, Felix, please.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Wanjiru, to be specific, so
Roselyne
Wanjiru, yeah. I think everybody right now is a bit, tired and just want to wrap it up. So I would just like all of us to, give a round of applause. Let us make it short and sweet so that we can get to the next affairs. So it's a Coca-Cola drill. Are we together? It's a Coca-Cola drill, so this is how it goes. I'll say Coca-Cola, then we'll open the cork, drink the cork, then we'll enjoy the cork. So when I say open the cork, you make the sound. Then you drink it. This is how you play with your tongue. And then, when I say enjoy, you'll say Bonga na blockchain. Are we together? We got it right? So that's how the drill is gonna be. I need you to participate in this drill because Roselyne has really done a very great work in terms of sharing with us the information. You know, information is power. And it only depends on the information you have. So you've gotten the right information, whether to invest and how to understand more about blockchain. So let us give a good round of applause. I'm not into the formal clapping, but let's do the Coca-Cola drill. So Coca-Cola, drink it. You're supposed to make that sound. It goes like, are we together? So let's open the Coke again. Coca-Cola, drink it, enjoy. I need a good enjoy. All of you saying Bonga na blockchain, okay, together. Yeah. So let's open the Coke for the last time before you can open the real Coke. Let's open the Coke now. Coca-Cola, drink it, enjoy. Thank you so much. We are glad to have hosted you here. I mean, you might have been curious to know what Lady Bird does. We specialize in website development, domain and hosting. Holistically, software development, but we couple it also with corporate branding. So we are the one-stop shop when you think of anything design, web development. This is the place. You can see the vibrant team that is here. They're really focused and committed to making sure that your work is done properly and delivered in time. We will deliver on our promises, so we can give you a timeline that maybe that you feel like it's all stretched, but we make sure that work is done and achieved and tested. Key to note, and tested.
Tested.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much, and now you can feel free to mingle. And the DJ, can you do the right now?